What you just saw is the power of the Moonveil Katana, one of the best weapons in the game. In this video, you will see how this build can carry you from the very start of the game all the way to the end of the DLC, and how to dominate both PvE and PvP without spending too much time, and why this weapon is still one of the best in the entire game. So grab a snack, get comfy, and let's dive in. Before we start crushing bosses left and right, let's understand why this katana is so OP and fun to play. The first reason is bleed. This katana has bleed built in, which means you don't need to search for anything or set anything up. You simply pick up the weapon, land a few hits, and around 15% of a boss's HP is gone. In most other builds, this will be enough to call it a good weapon, but in this one, bleed is just a nice bonus, because the real power comes from the Ash of War. The real power of Moonveil comes from its transient moonlight skill. When you hold the skill button, your character sheathes the sword. A light attack sends a horizontal wave of magic forward, while a heavy attack releases a vertical wave that deals even more damage. You can think of it like having two super moves in a single button. One is perfect for clearing groups of enemies, and the other is made for bosses. Both attacks deal pure magic damage, which is why we focus heavily on intelligence in this build. But that's not all. If you stand close to the enemy, the attack hits with both the sword swing and the magic wave at the same time. This means one strike deals double damage. Against normal enemies, a single use of transient moonlight can deal around 1,500 to 2,500 damage. Most late-game enemies simply die in one or two hits. The horizontal slash can even wipe out entire groups in a single swing, which feels incredibly satisfying to use. And this naturally brings us to another reason why Moonveil is one of the best weapons in the game. It works everywhere. Dungeons, caves, regular enemies, bosses, even dragons. No matter where you go, this weapon stays effective. There is no enemy in the game that this isn't good against, except perhaps those who are completely immune to it. Oh wait, there is none. There is no enemy in Elden Ring that's completely immune to magic attacks. Some are resistant to it, but with how we're going to polish this build, you'll deal so much magic damage that even those who are supposed to be resistant to it still won't stand a chance against you. Each slash only costs 15 FP, so with enough mind and a few blue flasks, you can keep using the skill again and again without running out. There is also another important strength. Transient Moonlight deals very high poise damage, especially the heavy attack. In simple terms, you hit the boss a few times, they stagger, you land a critical strike, and a huge portion of their health disappears. The damage is so high that even Mikola might start reconsidering his life choices. And Moonveil still has bleed, so if you ever feel like not using the skill, normal sword swings will still trigger hemorrhage after a few hits. Best of all, you can obtain this weapon very early in the game, almost right after reaching the first step. Speed, damage, range, bleed, stagger, and early access are the reasons Moonveil has remained one of the most popular weapons since its release. So let's move straight to how to build this setup. As we could guess, our main weapon is Moonveil, but that's not all. We'll also equip a lightning-infused Misericord and the Carrion Regal Scepter. The Misericord has the highest critical damage multiplier in the game, so when we break an enemy's stance with Moonveil, we switch to this to maximize devastating riposte damage. We'll also infuse it with the Golden Vow Ash of War to get even more damage. We'll also give the Misericord the lightning affinity because, at max level and the stats we'll go for, this grants more damage than the standard variant. One riposte will deal around 3,000 damage at once. That's a huge number for such a small weapon. And talking about the stats, we'll need a lot of intelligence for this build, so we're starting the game as an astrologer. Your vigor goes to 50, so you won't get one shot or even two shot by late game bosses. 28 mind gives you enough FP to comfortably cast spells and spam transient moonlight without constantly chugging blue flasks. 25 endurance provides solid stamina and enough equipment load to wear proper gear. And yeah, nobody likes fat rolling. Some point to dex so we can equip some items and everything else fully to intelligence. This is how the stats evolve across the game. For the early game, for the mid game, for the full late game setup. Since we've invested heavily in intelligence, we are going to training for a ballet potter or add some spells. And as a wand, we're going to use the Carrion Regal Scepter. It's the most powerful sorcery staff once your int stat exceeds 70. We'll use it to cast 2 offensive spells and 1 support spell. First, the Glint Blade Trio. This is just your backup offensive option. Fire this one up and it will automatically hone in on enemies. It's great for dealing with crowds and even better against singular enemies. It's great to have when you're positioning yourself for the transient moonlight. The second spell is Ranni's Dark Moon. It's better than the other moon spells for two reasons. One, it causes frostbite, which lowers an enemy's defense, and it also causes a debuff that makes enemies more susceptible to magic damage. The third spell is Terra Magica. This is a spell that summons a sigil on the ground, and whenever you cast magic spells and skills while standing on it, you deal 35% more damage. During a fight, you'll realistically not be able to stand on it all the time, but it's a great place to get back to whenever you can. Run. For the armor, we will take a Thrakshasa set for an additional 8% damage and 58 poise to handle some hits from bosses and not get staggered. That boost applies to weapon skills, spells, and melee attacks. Now for our talisman setup, we have the Magic Scorpion Charm, which boosts your magic damage by 12%. The Shard of Alexander, which boosts weapon skills by 15%. Rellana's Cameo, perhaps the best boost here, increases the damage of your attack by 45% whenever you hold a stance for more than a second. That's all it takes. Hold the skill, wait for your character to get this red glow, and slap. Boom, more damage. Finally, we have the Blade of Mercy, which gives a 20% attack boost for 20 seconds after landing a critical hit. This means you'll deal more damage after landing a powerful critical hit attack. To round up the build, we have the Crystal Tears. These ones are simple, but they're vital to our overall build. First, the Magic Shrouding Cracked Tear, which increases your magic damage by 20%, and the Stone Barb Cracked Tear, which helps you break enemy poise faster so you can land more critical hits.
And that completes the build.
And here you have the Moonlight build optimized to its maximum potential. To fully utilize all the power you have, here's how the rotation works during boss fights. Before each fight, chug your Physic Flask, switch to your Misericord, and activate the Golden Vow. As soon as the fight begins, cast Ranni's Dark Moon. Then, cast Terra Magica. If you're able, stand on top of your sigil while casting your spells or skill. Hold your skill and wait for Rellana's Cameo's buff to activate before unleashing it. Over 4,000 damage in one strike. That's almost twice as much damage as you would have dealt without all the buffs and bonuses. If you're able to break an enemy's poise, immediately take advantage by switching to the Misericord for maximum damage. Thanks to the Blade of Mercy, the damage of your transient moonlight now increases to almost 5,000 per strike for at least 20 seconds. Whenever you're dealing with large crowds of enemies, you can sneak in the Glint Blade trio here and there to eliminate several enemies while you're positioning yourself for the transient moonlight attack. You also don't need to cast Terra Magica, use Ranni's Dark Moon, or chug the Physic during these smaller fights. Your sword and the Glint Blade trio will be more than enough for them. It's absolutely OP, isn't it? Most bosses won't take longer than a minute or two, with maybe 3 to 4 exceptions of course, but it is more than viable to take down every single boss in the game with ease. To give you a showcase of the build, we're going to use it against 4 bosses at different stages of the game. Our first test will be against Margit, representing the early game bosses. Up next is the Black Knight Kindred, that annoying thing that guards the Grand Lift of Rold. It'll be our mid-game test, as well as our gauge for how well the build does against huge enemies. For the endgame boss, we'll face Godfrey, and finally, we'll take on Melania, the second hardest boss in the game. Alright, let's get started. Early game bosses are a joke with this build. With all our buffs, we make it this him debuffed by the Dark Moon, and hitting him up close, the Transient Moonlight's damage was over 4,800, eliminating him in one blow. The fight was over in 20 seconds. That's how powerful this build is. But then again, Margit is an early boss. How does this fare up against later bosses? Let's give this a try against the Black Blade Kindred. After the Dark Moon took about 15% of his HP, one clean hit was about 3,800 damage. Mid-game bosses still don't stand a chance. Things became a bit trickier with Godfrey, as expected of course. He is an endgame boss after all. But with over 3,800 per hit, he also fell after only 6 hits. The fight did take a little longer because of positioning issues. When you fight someone who moves as fast as him, you'll have to take your time and find your footing to know when exactly to land your hits. All that said, Just a minute and 30 seconds and the first Elden Lord was defeated by our Moonveil build. Not too shabby still. And now, for the fight you've all been waiting for. The build we've been hyping about versus the boss everyone hates or loves.
I am Malenia, Blade of Mikola.
She was still as resilient as ever, and the 6 hits that took down Godfrey weren't even enough to take her down during the first phase. We still needed to strike her 2 more times just to progress to the next phase. We dealt the same number of damage, but her HP was way too high. The only problem here was the pacing, mainly because of how aggressive Malenia is. But with the right timing, the power of this build still shines. During the second phase, even as the effects of the physic expired and without the help of Terra Magica, I was able to deal about 2,400 damage per hit of the skill, and the fight was over after about 5 hits. All in all, it took me 2 minutes and 30 seconds to defeat Malenia. Not bad considering the average duration most players take when fighting her is about 5 minutes, if not more. The level 150 build is optimized for maximum damage output, but just in case, I've prepared a few alternatives for players who are either underleveled or don't have access to the DLC. I've compiled a level 125 version of the build, one at level 80, and one that doesn't require any DLC items. The good news is that Moonveil adapts to all these situations. The core strategy stays the same. You're still stacking intelligence, using transient moonlight as your primary damage source, and breaking stance for critical hits. We just adjust the stats, swap out a few items, and the build still remains quite powerful. For this build, all the gear stays the same. The only thing that changes is our stat. It's lower across the board, but it's still survivable and packs a punch, just not quite as high as our original build. Nevertheless, even at level 125, this build still one-shots Margit. The damage you'll deal with this build is lower compared to the level 150 build, but it's still higher than Margit's overall HP. The performance is more or less the same against Blackblade Kindred, although he did have just a bit of HP remaining after 2 hits of the transient moonlight. Just hit him one more time and he falls. Not much difference there in terms of time taken and overall effort. Godfrey will be a bit tougher though. With your damage lowered to about 3,000 per hit, even with all the buffs and bonuses, it took a few more hits to deal with this guy. The time will be around the same, only a few seconds more, but you'll still have to be a bit more careful. Malenia was even more of a hassle. Lower damage output means a longer boss fight, which means more room for error. That's room you don't want more of considering who you're fighting at this point. Regardless, with proper execution, you'll be able to defeat Malenia with this build in about 3 minutes. Stats now look like this, which is a major drop, but quite decent enough. The major change here is swapping the Carrion Regal Scepter for the Academy Glintstone Staff. The Carrion Regal requires 60 intelligence to wield, which we don't have yet. The Academy Staff is the most powerful staff for lower intelligence levels, and you can pick it up much earlier in the game. We also drop Ranni's Dark Moon since we don't have the intelligence requirement anymore. Just remove that spell from the rotation, and you'll still be able to take out bosses after a few hits. Take Margit, for example. An early game boss, so nothing changed really. Still down after 1 hit. The story is the same for a mid-game boss like the Black Knight Kindred. Around 2,500 to 2,800 damage per hit, 4 hits in all to bring him down, even without Ranni's Dark Moon and the more powerful staff. You'll have a harder time dealing with Godfrey. You'll still deal almost 3,000 damage per hit, but but your HP is much lower now. 2 hits are all it will take to defeat you, 1 if he hits you with those grab attacks. Just continue being more careful.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
Land your hits when he's open, and you'll still defeat him in about 2 minutes. Malenia's even more merciless. With your lowered HP, 2 fast strikes or 1 flurry is all it will take to bring you down. At this level, you'll have to play perfectly to defeat Malenia. Even with about 2,800 per hit of our transient Moonlight skill, it will take you 3 to 4 minutes to defeat her, if not more. If you don't own Shadow of the Erdtree, you can still run an incredibly powerful Moonveil build using only base game items. The core weapons and stats remain identical. Moonveil, Misericord, and Carrion Regal Scepter all come from the base game, and you still hit level 150 with the exact same stat distribution. The major change is armor. The Rakshasa set is DLC exclusive, so we swap to the Spellblade set instead. You lose the 8% damage boost from Rakshasa, but the Spellblade set provides solid physical defense and looks great with the magic-focused build. For Talismans, we replace the DLC exclusive ones. Rellana's cameo gets swapped for the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, which boosts our damage by 13% after a few successive hits. Not quite as buffed, but it's the best alternative we've got. Plus, you have the benefit here of performing your slashes immediately, since you won't have to wait for the Rellana's cameo's buff. Then, we change the Blade of Mercy to the Dagger Talisman, which increases the damage of your critical attacks by 17%. We also swap the Glint Blade trio with the Magic Glint Blade, which is almost just as powerful as our original option. Seriously, the difference is very minimal. Your overall damage here drops when compared to our original build, but enemies and bosses alike will still absolutely melt before your transient Moonlight attacks. Take this fight with Margit, for example. The Dark Moon took half of his HP, and the weapon skill erased the rest. Fight still over in under 20 seconds.
This alternative build makes short work of the Blackblade Kindred too, just 3 hits of the Transient Moonlight to end the boss fight. With Godfrey took about the same time as our main build for one reason: we're faster too. Since we don't have to wait for the buff of Rellana's cameo, we deal less damage, but we're able to spam the Ash of War much faster. The same goes for the Malenia boss fight. It took the same time to defeat her as the main build due to the higher aggression. It took more hits, yes, but it took around the same time. So still pretty OP in my book. And there you have it, the ultimate Moonveil Katana build for Elden Ring. We covered the full level 150 build, tested it against 4 major bosses, and showed you variations for level 125, level 80, and non-DLC setups. This weapon remains one of the absolute best in the game. Now, there are some important things you'll want to keep in mind if you want to be as effective as possible when using this build. First things first, positioning is the absolute key when it comes to this build. Remember, you'll be holding the skill for a second before you can use it, which means you'll need to know exactly when to land your attacks so you don't eat enemy attacks after every 5 seconds. Be patient and don't always spam your attacks. Trust me, it'll be worth landing them properly. Also, don't get pressured into always staying within your Terra Magica sigil. It's good to position yourself properly there so you can land more damage, but not if you're compromising yourself during the boss fight. Elden Ring enemies are notoriously aggressive, and sometimes you'll have to move around the arena not only to get to the enemies to attack them, but also to get away from them to gather yourself. Cast Terra Magica during fights, and have it be a base location you can get back to. You can also lure enemies to you so you can hit them from where the sigil is. No matter the case, just remember that it's more important to move along with the enemy than it is to fight them wherever the sigil is. Plan your positioning accordingly. Finally, don't forget that your Moonveil has basic attacks too. You don't have to just use the Transient Moonlight skill every step of the way. When you're dealing with smaller enemies with low HP, it's best to save your FP and just slash at them. If the boss only has small HP remaining, don't risk getting hit by properly repositioning yourself again for a skill strike. Just quickly cap things off by slashing at them.
Now, let's talk about where to find all these items. Instead of spending 10 minutes explaining every location and every quest step, I came up with something much easier. I divided all item drops into 3 simple categories. First, items that drop from bosses. Second, items you receive after completing quests. And third, items that you can simply find in the world. On the screen, you'll see different icons for each category. This icon means the item drops from a boss. This icon means the item is obtained through a quest. And this icon means the item can be found somewhere in the world. Right now, you can see the full map on your screen. Feel free to pause the video, slow it down, and check exactly where each item drops if you want to collect them yourself. And with that out of the way, let's move on. Do you agree with the build? Are there any changes you'd make to optimize it further? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or you can hop in on our Discord server as well. Let's have a chat. That's it for today's video. If you like this one, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more Elden Ring guides. If you're looking for more content, click on one of the 2 videos that are currently on the screen. Until next time, this is Hawk Live signing off.